Well, I just realized I made a big mistake. I'm headed to the gym. I'm thinking about the vlog. I'm super locked in and focused. I'm just parking now. And I'm just realizing that I forgot to kennel Brody. So this will be his first time that he's been left alone, unsupervised, outside of the kennel since we've brought him back. So I have no idea what I'll be walking home to. Yeah, this leaving Brody by himself is more of a gamble than going to the casino. Update to come next. Let's see how this went. Time to find out. Oh. Well, hello, Brody. Did you do this? Oh, what a good boy. Oh, my goodness. All right, let's see if anything else got destroyed. Oh, my goodness. Okay. All right. See, we made some short work of some toys. First filmed hand of the session. I'm on the button with 10-9 of diamonds. Under the gun +1 opens to 20 and gets called by the cutoff. In the moment, I decide to raise this one up to $80. The initial raiser calls and the cutoff folds, so we go heads up in position to a flop of Queen 5-3 with 1 diamond. The opponent checks. I missed with only 1 high card. This isn't great for my range, so I decide to check it back. The turn brings in a second diamond, and +1 bets $75. In position with a flush draw with such small sizing, I call, and we go to a river of the 7 of diamonds. I get there on the flush, and the opponent slows down with a check. I'm going to be good here. I think he's going to fire again for value if he has a flush. I settle on 115 for value, and the opponent snap calls and flips over king-queen offsuit, expecting it to be good. I show that I went runner flush, and we start the night off with a $571 pot. I think I missed out on some value there. I think a queen is probably going to call anything up to $200. So definitely missed out on some value there, but that's okay. We'll still take the win. The suited connectors keep coming. We've got 10-9 of hearts, and the button raises it up to 30. I'm in the big blind. I make the call, heads up, straddle folds, and we go to a flop of 10-8-5 rainbow. I check. The button bets 30. This board doesn't hit him well, but he is on the older side, and some older players auto c-bet regardless of the board texture. I've got top pair. I don't think too long. I stick in the call. If he fires again, I'll probably put him on an overpair, and if he slows down, that probably means that I have the best hand. The turn is another 5, and he bets 115 this time. I'm behind. He's most likely got an overpair here. I do have more 5s in my range than he does, so maybe at times I can come back over the top, but I don't see him folding out overpairs here, so I don't like this play or this timing. I think the best play is a fold. The second best play is to try and bluff, and I think I settle on the worst play, which is to call. Unless I've seen him be aggressive, which I haven't yet, I can't call with a weak top pair here. With the pot up to 356, hoping to see a 10, but the river unfortunately comes in as the 3 of clubs. I check, and he bets $100. Now, with the pot being at 356, this certainly looks like a value bet. I only need to be good less than 20% of the time. I just don't see him having any bluffs at this point. I don't hate the river call as much as I hate the turn call, especially since I get to see what he was playing with. That turn call is horrible, though. But anyway, I stick in the call, and he shows king 10 offsuit. Definitely not what I put him on, but it makes sense in hindsight. This is probably my worst played hand of the day. I need to just fold out on the turn every time, live to see another day. If I end up seeing that the opponent is especially aggressive, then maybe it makes sense to put up a fight with top pair weak kicker. But this wasn't the time nor the place, and I paid for it. We chipped down big time. Ace-queen offsuit is not the easiest hand to play, and when under the gun +2 opens to $30, it's important that I give you some background about this particular villain. When I'd first sat down, I saw him 3-bet another reg with 8-7 offsuit. He got super lucky by turning a straight in what ended up being a $1,600 pot. There's probably a reason that he had for 3-betting when he did, but I've seen him be aggressive pre-flop
without necessarily having a great hand. And I've been 3-betting him a few times the last several orbits. So I put his 4-bet range as wider than you might expect. He opens to $30 and I 3-bet from the low jack to $100. It folds back to him. He takes a look at my stack and shoves all in. He's got me more than covered and I've got 450 more. So we've got about 200 in the pot. The sizing is huge. I don't see him doing this with kings, definitely not with aces, as I'll fold out most of the time. I think he's doing this with suited connectors and maybe pocket sevens and up, and then maybe any ace 10 and up. If I'm correct in guessing what range he's doing this 4-bet with, this is a call, especially with the extra $200 in the middle. If I'm wrong and he's being only a 4-better with, jacks and better and ace king and better, then this is definitely a fold. I think about it though, and I think, well, he probably doesn't have aces or kings. Unless he has ace king or queens, I'm at worst flipping with him. So I decide to gamble and I stick in the call. Right away I tell him that I don't have a pair, and he says, okay, well, we're probably flipping. The flop comes out king 8-4, the turn is a 10, and the river is another 8. He shows pocket 10s for the full house, and he takes it down. So we lost the flip, well, almost a flip. We were about a 43% underdog there, and we are felted. So it's time to add on. We take out another $700, and we try again. Time to battle back. So after adding on, we have an unfilmed hand that is quite action-packed. So we've added on for 700. We're going back and forth with this action player. He raises to 30, and I come over the top with 10-9 suited and make it 105. Everyone else folds, and he puts in the call. The flop comes out 9-8-3 with 1 heart. He checks, and I think it through for a second. Part of me wants to bet this one for protection, but he knows this board won't hit me much, and I would rather play in position than face a massive check raise. So in the moment, I decide to check it back. The turn is a 3 of hearts, and he checks again. He could have a 3 here, but I think most of the time I'm ahead. I've got top pair, and I've got a flush draw, and I've got outs to a full house as well if he does have me beat right now. I bet 80 for value, and I have about 450 behind. He check raises to 225, and for whatever reason, I'm not sure if there was some ego involved, if it was kind of a dominance thing, but there was definitely some aggression going back and forth between the two of us. So when he check raises me to 225, if I stick in the call, that leaves me with about 200 left, and I really don't know where I stand. And the moment he came over the top, I just decided I was rolling with my hand. I go all in, and I avoid the snap call, so that's good. I'm not really sure if I want him to call or not the longer that he thinks about this one. He's tanking, he's looking at me, trying to figure out what he wants to do. He says, I really hate paying people off who snap jam on me. So I really don't know where he's at or what he's got, but it's only another 200 to call. So again, I go back and forth on wanting him to call, wanting him to fold. In the end, he ends up folding. So we take it down. He asked me what I have. I don't tell him. Later in the night, we end up talking about it. I told him that I had top pair with a flush draw. And he said he had 2 overcards and a diamond draw. I didn't even see that there were diamonds out there. I'm not sure if I believe him. He's a poker player after all. But anyway, we took this one down. So I cash out and book a $486 loss. Not ideal, but I would say that, we lost one big flip, which in the end was technically a winning call. And I didn't get any pairs. I actually sat down at 1-2-2 while I was waiting to get onto the 3-5-10 table. I had pocket sixes in the first hand, and I cracked kings to make a whopping $60 because the opponent was short stacked. And then after that, I didn't get a pair all night. I didn't get a single pair at 3-5-10, and I played for almost 4 hours. So all things considered, losing the flip, not getting any pairs, much less premiums, I'm okay. I think that one hand that I had 10-9, I know there were a few of them, but that one hand where the guy had king 10 offsuit, I think once he fires 115 on the turn, I need to get out of there. But other than that, I was pretty happy with how I played despite the loss. Not sure how you are all after a loss. I think I still need to get better about not being too results oriented, but I go back on a Sunday ready for an all-day session. First hand, of course, is unfilmed. Just sit down at a new table. I've got pocket sevens and I open from mid position. Of note, there were a couple people who did not want to put in the kill or the straddle. So several of the hands from this second part of the session have no $10 straddle. So they're just playing like regular 3-5. This is one of those. So I open a 20 and get called by the button. The flop comes out, queen 9-6 with 2 clubs. Not great for my particular holding, not great for my range. Out of position, I check back. He bets 25 and I call pretty quickly, hoping that he's just trying to steal the pot. The turn brings in an 8, so I'm now open-ended. I check. He bets 50 this time, and I stick in the call. The river's the ace of spades, and at this point, I don't think my pair of sevens are any good. He probably has a queen, so I decide to lead out. I bet 115 as a bluff. He tanks for a while, and ultimately throws away his cards. I'm guessing he had a queen. I'm not sure. He also could have been on a club draw, so maybe I was ahead here. But either way, I didn't want to face another bet. I would much rather just stick in the 115. If he calls, he calls. This was a hand where the straddle was not on, so it was just regular 3-5. Under the gun, who I've played a couple times in the past, raises to 30, and with red pocket queens, I make it 105. It folds back to the lady who sticks in the call, and we go to a flop of 10-8-4 rainbow. She checks, and I bet 75 for value, and she calls. The turn brings in a 6. She checks again. I bet 100, and she calls. The river is another 4, which is good. She checks. I don't see her checking back a full house, and I don't put her on aces or kings. She's the kind of person that really prefers to play early on. She likes to protect her big hands. So when she checks again, I have to have her beat. I go all in for 230. She calls. I show my queens, and they are good. I heard her later on telling somebody else, complaining about the hand, that she had pocket jacks. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but that's one of the few things that makes sense. We scooped nearly an $800 pot in just regular 3-5. Really good way to start the day. All right, my last unfilmed hand of the day, this time with pocket kings in the cutoff. This is another one of those times when there was no straddle on, unfortunately. We get one limper, and I make it 30 to go and get called by 2 people in early position, including one of the limpers. The flop comes out 9-6-3 rainbow. Not good for my range. I want to fold out all those ace-high hands and get value from all those other single pair hands. I bet a little bit under half pot. I stick in $40. The big blind folds, and the initial limper comes over the top with a check raise. He makes it 150. Now, at the time, he hadn't gotten out of line that I had seen, so I thought he was more of a straightforward player. Later, I learned that that was not the case. He was making some raises on the river with just like bottom pair, where I think in his mind, he's like, well, I block bottom set, so it's a good time for me to check raise and people are going to fold out. Well, he got caught bluffing or semi-bluffing a few times, but I didn't know this at the time. So he made it 150. In position, I think the right play is a call, because if I come over the top, I'm only going to get called by worse. I think it's too nitty to fold, because if I'm folding kings to the first check raise, I'm just going to get blown off all my good hands. I think if I'm out of position, it might make sense to come back over the top and really put him to the test. But in the moment, in position, I stick in the call, figure out what's going on. Again, I thought he was more on the straightforward side when this hand was happening, which was unfortunate. Anyway, the turn brings in another 9. I don't think he has pocket 9s, because I think he would have opened with 9s. But for somebody who just check raised, I could see him doing it with a 9 to figure out where he stands. I could also see him doing this with middle or bottom set. Either way, the only thing I'm beating at this point are open-ended draws. So 4-5 and 8-7. If he doesn't have one of those two holdings, I think I'm behind here, either against a 9 or against a full house. So when he continues for 230, I figure more than likely I'm beat. Now, if this had been later in the day after I'd seen him bluff a few times, I'd probably stick in the call. But at this point, I just decided my kings are no good. I fold. Does not feel good, and I never figure out what he had. This is probably my biggest regret of the session. This is a hand that joins late. Pocket fours, limp city, and I stick in the call as well. Flop comes out queen six deuce with two spades. I'm just in check fold mode, but it checks around. And the turn, we bank a 4. The calling station fish to my right bets 25. I don't want to scare him off, so I just stick in the call and everyone else gets out of the way. The river brings in a fourth 4. He bets 55, and now it's just a matter of how big can I go. I decide to make it 125, trying to get value from all those hands with a queen in it. He pretty quickly calls, and I show my quads, and they're good. He says that he had 5-3, which, if that's the case, I'm surprised he didn't come back over the top. Nevertheless, we are happy to take it down. Always nice to run into quads, especially when you go runner-runner. A pretty straightforward reg sits down to my right, and he raises to $30, and I stick in the call. We go heads up to a flop of king, jack, deuce with one club. The villain checks, even though the board is good for him. I have equity with the gutter ball, and I'm in position. I could try and fold out his mid-pocket pairs or maybe queens with a couple barrels. I think I could get him to fold out on this king-high board. But I just decided to check back and to play in position. The turn brings in a 7, so now I'm double gutted, and he bets $40. In position, a lot of outs. I go ahead and make the call. The river is an 8. I've got the nuts. And the villain continues betting, this time for 55. I have to raise. It's just a matter of the sizing. And I settle on 200. He doesn't like it and starts shaking his head. He stands up, gestures to somebody that he knows, and says, well, I'm saying goodbye to my chips. If he knows he's no good, why doesn't he fold? I don't know. Anyway, he sticks in the call. I turn over the straight. He looks disgusted, turns over ace-king, and we scoop a $451 pot. Another non-kill pot hand, and the calling station fish limps from the hijack for $5. I have red pocket kings, so I bump it up to $25, and things get even better when the button decides he wants to bump up the price of poker to $75. The calling station calls, and he has only about 200 left. I definitely want to raise this up. If there's a way where I can either isolate or maybe I can get the calling station fish all in, that would be ideal. I come over the top again and I make it 300 to go. The button folds. The calling station fights himself for a little bit and then lets his hand go. Maybe I should have done a smaller raise to 175. That still might have accomplished the goal of isolating one of the two of them. And sometimes inexperienced players or maybe people who are on tilt, are short stacked, decide to just rip it all in and say YOLO there. I probably missed some value, but hindsight is always 20/20. It's nice to scoop $150, and we move on to the last hand of the day. This time the straddle's on. 2 people limp for 10, and in the hijack, I decide to make it 60 to go. I get called by the cutoff and the button. So we go 3 ways to a flop of 10-7-4 with 2 diamonds. Out of position on a board that's not going to favor me, I decide to check. The cutoff checks, and the button bets 80. I check raise to 215, hoping to just take it down. The cutoff folds, but the button sticks in the call. So I'm representing an overpair with about 500 left, and my plan is to jam on any non-diamond. But the turn brings in the queen, so we get there on the second nut flush. Thinking about it, if I did have an overpair, I think it makes sense for me to slow down here and look like I'm afraid of diamonds. So I check it back, trying to make it look like I don't have the diamond, but the button decides to check back as well. The river's a total brick. I go back and forth between checking again, betting small, or betting big, and ultimately I decide it's time to just go for it. I rip it in and shove for 500. He tanks for a minute, probably 2. Obviously, he's not doing this with a nut flush, so I've got the winner. I'm hoping he calls, but ultimately he folds. He asked me a few times before I get up to go if I had kings there, so it sounds like he just had a weaker one-pair hand. Maybe we get called if we bet a little bit smaller. But I don't hate the sizing. I think going a little bit more polar is more likely to get called by a bluff catcher than if I had bet, let's say, 200 or 250. I don't know. What do you guys think in the comments? Anyway, we take it down. We go on a little bit of a run before we cash out for $1,039 for a profit of $339 in part 2 of the video. Nothing great for 7 hours of poker on a Sunday, but sometimes that's the way it goes. We didn't run great. We didn't run awful. We had decent players for the most part. There was one fish. I wasn't able to catch him. And that's poker.
Hey everybody, subscribe here to catch the latest episodes. Also, hit that like button and share these videos with anyone who might enjoy them. Doing that really helps the channel and its goal to support dog shelters, so thanks for watching Poker for Pound Pups, and have a great day.